Episode 5 has arrived, and with it, we get tons of character development and tons of lore, so let's not waste any time. We start exactly where we left off, in the Great Library Pleiades. Emilia wants to celebrate their victory, but Subaru can't help but call the test unfair, and shit, I mean, he's right. The test here required fundamentals that a vast majority of people in this world do not have. Knowledge of real-world stars. A lot of people from Earth alone wouldn't be able to narrow down this answer. It had to be someone exactly like Subaru, a star nerd. In his mind, he considers Flugel to be a completely twisted asshole, and he says as much to Shala, saying that he has a nasty personality. Shala laments that it's unlike Master to dunk on himself, and okay, now we gotta talk about the elephant in the room here. And I'm sure some of you have either thought it, or heard about it down the grapevine, or maybe some YouTube reactors have considered themselves. I don't know how to watch them. I've seen you guys start talking about it in my comments too. Subaru equals Flugel. I mean, let's be honest. Shala is really digging in about it here, and these types of theories of someone equaling someone else are likely the most prevalent theories in ReZero. Al equals Subaru, Subaru equals Flugel, Sirius equals Fortuna, Amelia equals Satella. They're all over the fucking place, and Subaru equals Flugel really gets its legs here. Let's think about it. They're both isekai, they both speak Japanese and are both possibly from Japan. Flugel constructed a tower that basically bears Subaru's name. Flugel just so happened to rely on the concept of the other person who comes here next having the exact same star knowledge necessary to complete this examination. And of course, you have Shala, who was absolutely convinced Subaru is Flugel. This will be a continual topic of discussion throughout a lot of the series, but I'm just going to throw in my 2 cents as to why, at this point, I don't necessarily think it's true. Ignoring the fact that one of the primary themes of the story in its infancy is that Subaru is not someone so super special that the world should bend to him, and he should not live his life like that, there are a few points we have already that I think point to Subaru not exactly being Flugel. First of all, the line that made me stop and run into this tangent. It's not like Master to berate himself. In what world does that possibly sound like Natsuki Subaru? The constant self-slanderer, to the extent that he basically shit on himself for an entire 20 minutes of runtime. Secondly, I do not think Subaru would have given Shala the orders Flugel had given her, notably, to snipe anyone approaching the tower and to stab anybody who tries to talk to her. Subaru is someone who greatly values life. This is something that has been especially brought up on him due to his experience with Return by Death. The only exception to this in my mind are the Sin Archbishops, and perhaps that is a moral inconsistency that you could consider, but even as far back as Arc 1, despite thinking about Ram and Felt as low-life criminals and how he shouldn't feel bad about their deaths, he couldn't just let them die. These commands feel exceptionally out of character for Subaru. I cannot see him at any point that we've known him making the call to have Shala indiscriminately kill those who came here, nor can I see him heartlessly leaving Shala behind for 400 years, considering he's the same guy who put it all on the line to take Betty out of her solitude. You could argue that maybe it's just a different version of Subaru, and at that point, we have to wonder if that's really even Subaru, and what significance a completely different guy being Flugel even really holds. At some point, I plan on making a Subaru doesn't equal Flugel video for the novel reader, so if you want to see more of that, make sure you subscribe, and I'll post that in the coming days, probably. For now, I will let anybody debate or theorycraft in the comments, just try and keep it spoiler-free so you don't spoil an anime only. Let's move on. Judging by Shala's reaction, we infer that this is the first time the library has ever been opened. Looking through the books, Emilia wonders if it's even okay for them to grab the books, considering Subaru is the one who completed the exam, and he assumes it's probably fine. Opening the book she grabs, the text scrambles around and becomes essentially unreadable. The books here are all marked with the names of people, however, none that they're able to recognize. That is, until Subaru stumbles upon a book with a particular name, Typhon. When he opens it up, he blacks out. There was a small young girl, her heart filled with so many worries that she had been burdened with since birth. A supreme problem that she pondered without end. To the girl, the world was black and white, good and evil, deeds that were just and deeds that were wrong. Her father, an executioner, was the reason why her world was split in two. She watched those executions firsthand. Her father had willed it, to show that crimes are punished, that evil was fittingly rewarded. As a result, she learned the appropriate punishment for a sin before she had ever learned the sanctity of life or the natural order of life and death. She desired a compass to guide herself, a scale of righteousness by which she could judge evil deeds as evil. However, it did not exist no matter where she looked. There was no simple way to judge things good or evil. She needed to reach an answer. She needed to imbue within her heart a worthy scale with which to judge good and evil. When she broke her father's cup, she cowered at the crime she had committed. She resolved herself to the fate of the criminals, to be beheaded. Confessing your mistakes and apologizing is the right thing to do, he said. He forgave her and patted her head, and so she understood. The measure of wrongdoing lay in none other than the heart of the criminal themselves. Even if no one witnessed it, a criminal's heart still knew their sin. She still did not know good. Good was more difficult. Following the model of her executioner father, she set out into the world so that she might deliver fitting punishments to crimes, to lay bare the hearts of sinners who merited punishment. The division of good and evil, right and wrong, sincerity and insincerity would be the culmination of her life's work. Look around. There's no one. There's no one here other than criminals who've been punished. Stepping over the broken fragments of people, including her father, who was the last, the woman set off to fulfill the task she had set for herself. The Witch of Pride queried sins, delivered punishments, and continued to judge criminals. It felt like his consciousness was pulled out of the book. He felt sticky, dried blood clinging to him, a ripping feeling that paid no heed to outer layers being peeled away in the process. The pain wasn't in his head or in his body, it was in his soul. His soul had been pulled into the book. There's a lot to wonder about Typhon, so it's interesting that we get to see her Book of the Dead, a story about interpretations of justice from the Witch of Pride, the sin that has still not been tracked down in the modern day, and with her corpse being revealed to us last season as being buried underneath Bristella. If you have any interpretations, theories, or anything about Typhon, I would love to hear them, so comment down below what you got. Beatrice looks at the book that Subaru had just read, much to his panic, but nothing happens. It seemed to only affect him. He experienced her life in terrifyingly rich detail. The smell, the taste, the feeling, and the weight of all the lives shattered. He felt like it was a miracle that he had made it back after experiencing someone else's memory so intensely. It seemed all too possible that he could have gotten swallowed up in someone else's life. The group deduces that in order to read these books, you must know the person, and at the same time as Subaru's conundrum, Julius collapses from his own book experience. Julius had peered into the book of Balroy Temglyph, the name of a former divine general of the Valachian Empire. Balroy had died, being felled in combat by Julius. Julius says that he was a man possessed of rare strength. A rare noble warrior and a master worthy of respect. There is quite a bit more detail here, but it was removed from this episode, so stick around if you want to hear more about Balroy and the Valachian Empire. Betty reiterates that this library is filled with books that can only be read if you knew the person, and specifically books of people who have died. They're known as the Books of the Dead. An insanely fucking cool plot device and world-building element. I really think these things are awesome. And Anastasia remarks that if this room contains the books of all those who've died, how the hell are they supposed to find any one individual book? Which makes Subaru think that he takes back his earlier comment. The guy who made this tower isn't the worst, he's the absolute worst. Meili remarks that this circumstance is all too much. She could probably read a lot of books with the amount of people she killed. Subaru had no idea what to say to her, but seeing how she didn't even consider it a problem made him feel sad. As a fantastic icebreaker, Subaru asks how she became a killer. She says about 5 or 6 years ago, she was obeying Mama rather than doing a job. Meili was abandoned, thrown away into a forest and raised by witch beasts. Because she could control them, her Mama took her in. The divine protection is also probably why she was abandoned in the first place, so it's hard to say if it's a good or a bad thing. Subaru asks her, if your parents' books were in here, would you want to read them? To which she says that she doesn't care at all. She holds no resentment for being abandoned. They don't matter enough for that. It's something that Subaru has a hard time coming to terms with. A journey to find oneself was a cliched way of describing it, but Subaru felt like there was meaning in discovering one's roots. This is a really cool discussion on the differentiation of origins, though. Subaru, whose parents meant a lot to him that deeply influenced him in both good and bad ways, finds them to be integral to form the man he is today. For Meili, who never even really knew her parents, they are more or less a nothing burger to her life. She lived a life without them. They have no influence on how she turned out, besides, I guess, throwing her into the woods. They couldn't be more diametrically opposed, and I appreciate that. I appreciate that Subaru, while not being able to understand, does not force his viewpoint on her. His origin matters to him, but not to her. It also feels interesting that this comes after Subaru read Typhon's Book of the Dead. Someone else who was also deeply inspired by their roots. Those roots unfortunately led her to manifesting as the Witch of Pride. Origins and roots are a tricky thing in ReZero because, well, they're a tricky thing in general. We see that with a lot of characters around us, in fact. Aridna and her uncertainty with her creator, Beatrice and the isolation a kid drove her into, Emilia's long and convoluted past both 100 years ago and post-unfreezing, Julius and his family circumstances which have still not quite yet been adapted, Ram with her obvious family trauma with her Oni village in Rem, which she partially forgot, Subaru with his incredible Arc 4 trials, and now Meili. I guess we can count Charlotte too, who had been abandoned. Family is an important topic as well. Can't forget about the Estrella family drama last season. There's a lot to think about and dissect here. Meili reiterates that she has no book that she wants to read, but it's in a sort of fleeting voice. She then adds, more books show up here when people die, right? And Subaru affirms. She wonders what would happen if he died right here and now then. He says he's not going to test it. And then Emilia pops in and they talk about progressing up the tower, but they have no idea how. With this small group of potentially millions of books, there's no way they can find anything. They ask Charlotte if she knows how to get upstairs, and nope, she's got no idea. She has never been higher than the 4th floor this whole time. Anna speculates that there are 5 rules that she has been told to protect this tower, and Charlotte is shocked that she got it right. She touches her fingers together, stating that if they all tried to secretly leave the tower behind her back, she would be forced to mercilessly kill all of them. She doesn't necessarily want to do it, but she has to. Subaru tells her that if she's not a spirit, she doesn't have to be so desperate to keep a contract, and Emilia berates him for talking about breaking promises again. So, the rules of the tower. Rule number 1. Any who challenge the library may never leave. The only way out opens once you solve all the examinations in their entirety and reach Maya. Rule 2. It is forbidden to break the rules of the examinations. Rule 3. It is forbidden to show disrespect to the library. Rule 4. It is forbidden to attempt to destroy the tower itself. Rule 5. Wait, there isn't one. The second rule is a bit bothersome. It means that there are hidden rules of the examinations they don't know about. Emilia comes to the conclusion that the person who made this tower is really mean. They have to advance while imagining what the rules might be. Subaru asks if she is the judge on if a rule is broken, but no. Charlotte just knows if they are or are not broken, and adds that as long as they're not broken, she will stay in control of her body, or rather her master's body. Subaru doesn't want it though. He tells Emilia to keep an eye on her, which she has no issue doing. She feels relaxed being near her. Emilia ponders and says that if someone dishonest made this tower, she might know where the stairs are. The stairs to the second floor were on the 4th floor, in the room right next to the green room. The room the stairs appeared in was an empty room before. Wanting to clear this place as fast as possible, Subaru grabs Bayako and they run up the stairs to enter the second examination room. Another white room with a sword sticking out of the ground. Taking the sword out, the voice echoes once more. Fool who attained the heavenly sword, gain his sanction. That wasn't all, however. A figure had appeared, repeating the words they all just heard a moment ago. Even at that range, Subaru could tell that his life was in the palm of that man's hand from the sound of his voice alone. Charlotte had slumped down in fear, anguish, or a secret third thing, I don't know. The man repeated the phrase over and over, but slowly there was a change. His speech broke down, and after Charlotte tackled Subaru, the man finally spoke. He's rough, he swears a lot, and he talks down to them. The man takes stock of the people in front of him, in which he lists in the following order: a babe, a sexy babe, rugrat, apprentice, and a small fry. Julia says he's not his apprentice, but the man yells out that it only makes him sound more like him. He looks around, taking in the surroundings as if to realize what he's here for, and asks if they should start. He sexually harasses Emilia for a bit before Subaru asks if he's the examiner. He has no idea. He doesn't give a flying fuck. If he wants to talk, then he has to make a move one step from the spot he's in. Julius takes up the blade and gives his title. The man's eye lit up, seemingly enjoying himself. He has no name worthy of saying. He's just the stick swinger. The examination for Electra. The second floor of the Great Pleiades Library. Time, conditionally unlimited. Attempts, conditionally unlimited. Challengers, conditionally unlimited. Examinations start. Well, this episode was okay. I'm going to criticize this episode, and I know that makes some of you very, very worked up, so I guess this is your warning. Frankly, if any episode was going to be the weakest one, episode 5 is sincerely the most valid one for that to be, but still. This episode is not exceptionally good. I'm not going to say it's bad either, it's probably a crisp 6, and that's just because I do think it has some good shots and good character animation. Source material does not give them much to work with, considering it's a lot of exposition and dialogue, but I also don't think a clear attempt was made to save the largely, maybe uninteresting to some source material, pretty uninspiring presentation of conversations when the episode is almost entirely conversations makes it a bit of a slog to get through at times. They also, in my opinion, could have used this lull in the story to re-implement the pretty significant cut content of episode 4, primarily the stuff about the Watchtower floors, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you can go back and watch my episode 4 video where I talk about it in length. This would have given anime only something to chew on for episode 5, but I fear that they may be left largely unfulfilled. I don't say entirely, because we do have a couple of pretty good parts. The Typhon book was really cool. I love the adaptation of Subaru getting sucked into the book, being him literally falling into it. And the fact that they aren't afraid to have a bit of narration for the scene since it's literally a book makes this a strong scene for me. Also, the second examination room benefits from the strengths of the first. The white space being lifted by the unique line work makes it look really cool. And the stick swinger's portrayal has a lot of the highlights of the episode in my opinion. A strong VA, strong emotive character acting, a great gag with him evaluating all those in front of him, and a great final shot to end the episode. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments below. We don't have a whole lot of cuts in this episode, but there is a big chunk from the Balray section, which we will get into in just a moment. When Subaru is lamenting the cruelty of the first examination, Charlotte tells him that, hey, at least Master left the puzzle solvable, and she wasn't sure if Reed would do that. Afterwards, when they first look around the library, Betty visually seems quite excited, and Subaru's a bit surprised by that. He tells her that he would have thought that she would have bad memories of the Forbidden Library, but she says that not all those years were necessarily bad, but also, it's where Subaru told Betty to choose him, so ultimately, it will always be remembered fondly. When Emilia first grabs a book, it goes a little bit differently. Subaru still offhandedly tells her it's probably fine to take one, but when she does grab one, he is shocked. All he did was say that it was probably fine, not that it was guaranteed. Emilia tells him that if Subaru says it's fine, and Julius follows up by saying that Subaru was able to solve a riddle that nobody else could answer, and that was quite an achievement. Emilia's trust, Beatrice's affection, Julius's sincerity, they were all things that Subaru wanted to have, but when he actually had them, the sense that something was wrong about it still refused to fade. Subaru was always doubting whether he really deserved to have any of it. The big cuts come, like mentioned earlier, with Balroy's book. When they first question him on what happened and point out whose book it is, Julius says that he is obviously familiar with who Balroy was, since he's a knight after all, but Subaru instinctually doesn't believe him, ripping the book from Anastasia's hands and opening it himself, but nothing happens. Subaru was aware of Balroy now too, but he was unable to read the book, so clearly, Julius is trying to hide something. Julius apologizes for trying to cover up the truth. It wasn't something he wanted to talk about. In terms of pure strength, and ignoring Volcanica and Reinhard, Wallachia would stand on equal ground with Lagunica because of the 9 divine generals, and tentatively, seemingly full of regret, Julius says that he was the one who felled Balroy in a duel. Emilia and Subaru wonder why him killing a divine general didn't lead to war between the two countries, and Julius tells him it's complicated. Balroy had plotted a coup d'etat in the Empire, and at the same time, Julius, Reinhard, and Ferris were in Wallachia. There's a bit of a shock about that as well, since Reinhard isn't allowed to travel to different countries, but an exception was made in this instance. Subaru says that he's putting Balroy on a pretty high pedestal for a guy who tried to coup the Empire, and he responds that he believes Balroy did not participate in a coup out of desire for personal gain or profit. Julius clearly has a lot of mixed feelings at his own struggles about his encounter with Balroy, and actually, this is all in reference to a side story that was released about 7 years ago called EX4. It details the coup in the Empire and follows Julius, Reinhard, and Ferris as they are thrust in the middle of all of it. This is unfortunately the only EX novel I do not have a video on, but if you want to read it, I think it's a solid story. After this scene comes the confirmation that you must have actually known the person to be able to read their Book of the Dead. Subaru a witch, and Julius a general. Anastasia's like, a witch, huh? And asks Subaru if he's secretly a member of the witch cult. Subaru shrugged in resignation, but the entire room looked like they had bitten into something sour. The next cut comes when they're talking about how this is all too much for their group to look through. Julius calls Subaru over and says if required, he could raise an army. They could report what they found in the kingdom and dispatch a dedicated team of investigators to the tower. However, this is then followed up by Shala saying that if they leave, they all get massacred. A small detail is that near the end of the episode, Beatrice is strangely unresponsive, ignoring Shala's provocations and even Subaru calling out to her. He thought she was focused on something, but then asks something is wrong, but she says it's nothing. On the upcoming second examination, Subaru thinks about the kind of bastard Flugel is. He most certainly comes from Earth, but with a German name like Flugel, Subaru thinks that if this next examination requires a knowledge of German history, then they are all fucked. The final cut is when they first make it to the White Room. Subaru can't help but wonder if they're back on the 3rd floor again, since it looks exactly the same. Emilia reassures him that this isn't possible. To go up to the first examination, they went up 54 steps. For this, it was 444 steps, and Subaru's like, holy shit, you counted? And that will wrap up the content we have for episode 5. This should be the only real lull of this arc, so if this episode bored you, please do look forward to the rest of Season 4, and I will see you all next week. Thank you so much for watching. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe for more. You can also check the description down below to become a member, which gives you benefits like early videos, membership badges, and cool custom emotes. You can join the Discord where we talk about ReZero, Kagurabachi, Jujutsu Kaisen, and all kind of stuff. Additionally, you can go to the channel store and pick up some awesome stickers made by our channel artist, so you can carry the power of Graphia with you on your water bottle. That's about it though. Thank you for watching. See ya.